yet they are so far away from it.
موسوی پرچم ایران منو پس بگیر. موسوی پرچم ایران منو پس بگیر. موسوی پرچم ایران منو پس بگیر. موسوی پرچم ایران منو پس بگیر.
نگاه کن اون طرف، همین سیاستی که از قدیم سر ما پیاده کردن همیشه بینمون فاصله بوده. دلم میخواد یه چیزی بگم. ما یه گوشه از تاریخ هویتمون رو از دست دادیم، یعنی غیرتمون رو. باید بگیم اون کدوم قسمتش بود، کجا بود که ما خودمون رو فراموش کردیم. برگردیم به اون نقطه، اونجا بازگشت بحث کنیم. اون وقت یه عده اون برای خیابون ما نمیسن، یه عده این برای خیابون.
انقلاب ایرانو دانشجوها یا باسوادترین مغزای دانشگاه تهران به وجود آوردن دیگه. آخونده که سواد ندارن که انقلاب به وجود بیارن. یه کسی که رهبر این مملکته باید به نظر من هم پیش خودم یه عقیده شخصی منه، باید پروفسور بشه، باید استاد دانشگاه بشه. آدمای بی سواد نمیتونن مملکت اداره کنن. اگه آخوندا واقعا انقلاب کردن، خب اگه رهبر ایران آخوندان و آخوندا قدرت دارن یا مثلا خدا یا حضرت محمدن، بله امام حسین اونا رو واقعا خدا فرستاده. اگه خمینی واقعا امام 14 بود، اگه این امام 14 بود، ایران رو باید همونطوری قشنگ منظم درست می‌کرد که آلمان رو درست کردن بعد از جنگ جهانی دوم.
The biggest problem for Mohammad Reza Shah in dealing with a dominant ally was the ever-changing residence of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., the White House. Every 4 years, he had to educate the new residents to the basic geopolitical facts about Iran and the infrastructure of Iranian society, the true nature of who is who, where they come from, what they really want, and who is pulling the strings for them. Explaining time after time that the needs and priorities of Iran were not necessarily what the novice new residents of the White House and their advisors believed was true. This trend started with the presidency of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and continued through the times of Harry S. Truman.
Your Majesty, I am happy to welcome you to the United States on this, your first visit here. I've looked forward to your Majesty's visit with great pleasure, and I trust that during its course you may have the opportunity of becoming well acquainted with our country.
Dwight David Eisenhower, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Richard Milhouse Nixon, Gerald Rudolph Ford, and the final disaster for the Shah with the selective human rights brand, James Earl Carter Jr. With one exception, when a polished politician took the highest office of the United States, one who knew the geopolitics of the region, the Shah's vision, and his talent to create Iran's future. Nixon had learned all this while serving as vice president to Eisenhower.
The interest of both of us is the same: to maintain our freedom, to maintain our peace, and to provide a better life for our people.
He was also well aware of the nature of dislike at the beginning of Kennedy's presidency between his administration and the Shah. In fact, there is a known but less discussed story about John F. Kennedy before his presidency and General Temur Bakhtiar, the ambitious and much feared head of Savak at the time of its inception following the infamous day of August 19, 1953, 28 Mordad. Kennedy had met with General Temur Bakhtiar while he was visiting America and promised him America's support if he staged a coup to overthrow the Shah. Bakhtiar, who didn't speak English, needed a confident translator during that meeting. This translator eventually informs the Shah, and it led to the fall from grace of Temur Bakhtiar, his dismissal, and his expulsion to exile in Iraq. Once in exile, Temur Bakhtiar continued to organize his activities against the Shah's government from inside Iraq. In Rome, he made a secret alliance with Khomeini and the leader of the Qashqai tribe, Khosrow Qashqai, to overthrow the Shah. The plan was financed by Jamal Abdel Nasser, then president of Egypt and arch-enemy of Mohammad Reza Shah. Bakhtiar was finally assassinated in the region near the Iran-Iraq border. Although later on, the Shah was received warmly by President Kennedy in his trip to the United States, the story was not easily forgotten. Nixon was also aware of another damaging action against the Shah and the highly nationalistic society of Iran. Initiated by the Kennedy administration and pushed through by the Johnson administration, denying Iranian authorities the right to prosecute American military personnel who committed crimes within Iran.
Again, we thank you.
باز هم متشکریم.
Nixon also knew that the land reform in Iran could have been handled much better if not for the pressure from Washington. The Shah and Nixon were in harmony with each other. A feeling of mutual acceptance and respect that the Shah did not have with any other U.S. presidents. Their understanding and trust of each other went years before Nixon's presidency. Nixon had met the Shah and traveled to Iran as the U.S. Vice President. They had many informal discussions and shared each other's vision. It was a trying time for the Shah to re-establish himself as an independent king with his own progressive agenda. For Nixon, it was a time to train himself as a politician who would understand the complexity of the world politics, and in particular, the Mideast situation, and a realistic possible solution for this man-made troubled region. Nixon was preparing himself for the presidency of the United States with a level of understanding the outside world that no other U.S. presidents ever had. And the Shah was re-educating himself about the reality of U.S. politics, politicians, true sources of power, the limits, the potentials, and the real process of decision-making in the United States. The two were a perfect pair to help each other reach their goal, a dream team in the global politics arena. Nixon's plans were disrupted and delayed when
John F. Kennedy defeated GOP standard-bearer Richard Nixon in one of the closest presidential elections on record. The youngest man ever elected president takes the burden from the oldest ever to hold the office as America enters the critical and challenging 60s.
And Lyndon Johnson was elected as the incumbent in 1964. Meanwhile, the Shah had to deal with two new U.S. presidents. He in particular had a hard time dealing with the dreamers of Kennedy's administration, who could not differ idealism and fantasy with the reality of the real world outside America.